Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to my next episode of our learning series. So today we are going to see or going to revise what we have discussed so far and how this SAP infrastructure is being set. Because when you are trying to develop your applications, you must understand the architecture of SAP. Okay, so first thing first, when you see the SAP, we call it as R3 architecture, right? Okay, so why it is being called as architecture? So for any project or any application or anything, first we need to store data, and for that purpose we'll use database, right? So SAP also uses database. Okay, so this is one layer, and the next layer is application server or message server. Then the third layer is our presentation server, which is a desktop or laptop through which you write codes or you do the configurations, like those things. Okay, so when you do or write codes and execute some processes or steps in the code, the request being sent to this application server. Okay, so when you send the request to application server has the responsibility to understand the request and send necessary messages to our database to retrieve data, or if it is an update request, it will send data to database so that data can be stored. Okay, so if you see this, we have three layers here. One is this, currently on which we work, we write code or we run applications in SAP, and then the application server, then the database server. Okay, so in any SAP project or any SAP layout or any SAP implementations, there is one database, and there can be multiple application server, but mostly organizations we have single application server. What when you go to some big organizations, like if you are from India, Coal India is a big company. So similarly, Indian Oil is the big company. If you are from Europe, then British Petroleum, how big it is. So in those kind of scenarios, you have multiple databases, multiple application servers, or a single database with multiple application server, and one application server is connected to multiple remote or presentation servers. Okay, so the relationship between application server and presentation server is always many to one. That means one application server and many developers, many functional consultants, many end users who use SAP daily to daily for business purpose. So those are all called presentation server, but application server is one. So one application server can handle multiple presentation servers. Okay, but in some cases one database can be linked to multiple application server, that is 3 to 4 application server. Okay, so till this, whatever we see, this is the basic architecture or layout of SAP. Okay, so now I hope the three architecture is clear to everyone. Okay, now our next step is we will come to this presentation server where we are writing code, because in this session, this learning series is designed for developers or SAP application developers or ABAP programmers, right? So we will understand from the point of from the viewpoint of a developer. Okay, so now this is the presentation server, and if you have experience in any programming language, you must aware of that you need an integrated development environment to write your code and to execute your code and to analyze the previous codes, right? So in SAP also we have dedicated IDE or integrated development environment that is installed in our local desktop. That means the IDE is always developed, always installed or part of the local system. Okay, So in SAP also we have used multiple IDs. One is SAP GUI. So we have already discussed how we are logging into GUI and how we are writing programs in GUI, right? And how even we are creating tables and everything in using SAP GUI. Okay. Apart from SAP GUI, we can use the Eclipse, okay, for developments as well. That also we have seen. And there is one more which is based on the business technology platform. So here this is like BTP. BTP stands for business technology platform. Okay, this is mostly a browser based development environment. Okay, so when you are going to use the BTP, so when you have your SAP servers in cloud, in that scenarios we can use the BTP platforms to develop or to develop any applications. Okay, but instead of that, using Eclipse also you will be able to connect to your cloud server. Okay, now coming to the next one. So who uses this kind of platforms? Mainly SAP has multiple users. Okay, one is technical users, one is functional users, and the third one is business users or end users. So what is the technical users? So technical users normally generate the applications, create applications as per the business need. And what is the functional consultants do? So let's say they define the business requirements. Okay, their main job is to, so business have their own requirements. So functional consultants normally translate the business requirement with respect to SAP. Okay, let's say, let's take a simple example. You have several restaurants, you are a restaurant chain, okay, like Domino's. You have several offices or several restaurants in a city. So in that case, the functional consultant will create a company code, okay, based on the geographic location. Okay, then under the same company codes it will create separate sales organizations. That means restaurants, in business it is called as restaurants, but in SAP it is called as sales organization, because there are several points where the sales of goods or sales of food has happening. Okay, that means your restaurant business, your city and different restaurants are converted to SAP terminology, and in SAP system those are being configured. So that is the responsibility of a functional consultants. Okay, now what is, and what the SAP technical consultants do? So as per the requirement of functional consultants, SAP technical consultants will create certain applications. Okay, now what is an application? So in each restaurant, whenever customer orders something, you are giving the order, then you are generating the bill, and you are getting the payments, right? So the process, so whatever the need of the process, so when you are generating the bill, it is a print based form, right? So functional consultants will decide what data should be there in that bill. Okay, and it is, and how the data will be displayed over it. And it is the technical consultant's job to create a print form based on the functional requirement. Okay, so the designing of this form and generating the data or filling up the data in that form is the responsibility of the technical consultant. And what the business users normally do? So business users run the applications, so they cannot change the application, they cannot configure the applications, they only can execute the applications. Okay, so business users is like a cashier who enters the list of food items and then generate the bill. Okay, they have limited authorizations and limited use of the SAP environment. They only have access to one particular application which falls on certain business processes on which the end user being involved. Okay, that being said, when you run a business, there are several business areas. Like one is the billing, what we discussed, and there is one more area where it is purchasing, because if you are making bread you need the flour, right? So when you purchase the flour, that is also a business process, and that application is different than what you bill to customers. That application is for vendors who supplies you the flour. Okay, so for that again one more business user will be there, and that business user cannot have access to the application that being used for billing to the customer. Okay, so that business user will have application for processing the payments to the vendor, because I am the vendor. If I am supplying you the flours to make bread, then you have to pay me. So that process will have access to that business user who handles the vendor payment, right? So now I hope it's been clear understanding what differentiates between different end users or developers, end users or different type of users in SAP, right? Now coming to the technical consultants, there are mainly two types of technical consultants in SAP. Okay, one is the SAP basis consultants or admins, normally they system admins. So their role is to make sure that SAP system and all the servers are running smoothly without any data outage or without any outage. Okay, so this is mostly with the admin. Okay, system admin kind of thing. So in our this learning series is mostly designed for this SAP application server, so mostly we will be discussing this part. Okay, so these are the developers who actually write codes in language ABAP to generate several SAP applications. Okay, so now they have mainly three different kind of tasks. Okay, so one is the backend developer. So what is a backend developer? So whenever any applications runs, so whenever applications runs, it has mainly three layers. Okay, one is the front end of the applications, or how the application is visually available for an end user. Okay, so that parts comes under UI or Fiori developer. Okay, second thing is OData developer. So whenever you enter any data in the front end or web page, so that data must pass to the application server. Okay, or whenever you send request to get some data, that request should pass to the application server, and necessary data from application server should be passed to the application or front end. Okay, so these processes are taken care by OData services or data services. In SAP we are using OData services. Okay, so for that we have OData developers. Okay, so OData developers mainly create the different type of requests. Okay, now backend developers, what they do, so if it is a GUI based applications or SAP's classic UI based applications, then backend developers can create the front end, and in that case we don't need any data service because it is a native UI applications SAP GUI. So we don't need any data services. We can directly get the data from database and process the data in the application server, and we can send the data to the UI for display. Okay, so we don't need any data services. But if it is using UI development or data services, then once the data reach to the application server, then how the data being used and how the data will be processed, that will be taken care of by backend developers. Okay, so to be a to be a functional, to be a full stack SAP developer, you need to know UI development, data services, as well as backend developer. And ABAP is the programming, that is programming language for all the mentioned developments. So if you are creating a OData services, in that case also you will use ABAP to generate the necessary classes for data services. Okay, and backend developer, so you must know ABAP. There is no second, there is no replacement for ABAP. You have to create function modules, classes, different services, enhancements, integrations, everything you need to do. So in today's time, like in 2024, people are saying that ABAP is obsolete. Obviously that is, if you, if someone don't know SAP, then those kind of people are saying this. But if you know SAP, ABAP is never going to be replaced by anything, because except the front-end programming and data services or cloud platform integrations, there are so many things that cannot be done by ABAP. Okay, so if you are integrating SAP to some other things, like there are idocs, okay, there are process enhancements, so all these things you must do using ABAP. So hope everything is now clear for all of you. So that's all for today. So we'll again discuss few more topics going onwards. Okay, till then, take care, bye bye, and see you all in next video.